I think I could help other people with digital marketing, meaning I could start my own thing. And he said, oh, Bruce, you don't have the mindset of an entrepreneur. You would fail miserably. It wouldn't work.
Where's the best place to have a hot dog stand? And you heard this?
No, I don't think so.
Where do you think the best place to have a hot dog stand is?
The Google SEO algorithm changed 5,000 times in 2021.
Welcome to Hello Grow,
the #1 growth podcast in the world.
Today we have Bruce Rowe with us. Bruce, super pumped to have you.
Glad to be here
On the show. Thanks for spending the afternoon with
Absolutely.
us. Quick bio on Bruce. Born in Washington, D.C., and apparently you can be the president of the United States, even if you're not born in a state, but you're born in Washington, D.C. And went through BYU for undergrad, then went to Idaho State University for a master's.
Correct.
You worked in retail for a little bit, and then almost 20 years ago, opened a marketing company called SIBO Marketing that we're going to talk a lot about today. On a personal note, Bruce and I got to a year ago today. Do you know where we were a year ago today?
We were in South Africa.
We were in South Africa,
Wow.
literally
I
today, on a Jeep going through.
My photos when it said 1 year ago.
It's literally today.
That's awesome. That was such a cool experience.
That we were there with their
I'm so
wives
glad we got to do that.
and eating wild food and having giraffes come right here, having cheetahs stand right in front of us, getting to see rhinos. Just insane.
Lions, all those things.
Lions,
So
everything.
cool.
Out in the wild.
Yep.
Bruce, again, super stoked to have you. We're going to just start off with we're just going to ask you to get vulnerable right off the bat.
Okay.
I'd like to know, over the last 19 years, what was one or two of, call them fetal position in the shower moments, where like you want to crawl under your desk, or sometimes like I've had those moments where I'm curled up on the floor in the shower, wondering what I got myself into. I think all entrepreneurs go through that. Would you mind sharing one with us?
Yeah, that brings up some negative memories, but because those are also potentially good things. So what comes to mind is some decision mistakes that I've made. And so I'm going to share an experience. So this is what came to mind. We could explore others a little further if we wanted to. But this one time, just thinking timing, probably 12 years ago, I was primarily involved in selling clients on our services. And then I had a team of people at that point. And I came back to the office and I said, okay, we got a new client. This is the client. This is what they're looking for. This is what they're trying to accomplish. And I said to two guys, do you want the client or do you want the client? And they said, let us think through this and then we'll get back to you. So give us 5 minutes. So I leave the office. I go talk to a couple other people. I come back into the room and they're going, and I'm like, what in the world are you guys doing? And they're going through that process. And
for everyone listening just on audio, that's some rock,
Rochambeau,
paper, scissors happening.
Sorry, I'm thinking video. So yeah. So anyways, so then I hear one of the guys say, "Ha ha, I win, you get the client."
Oh.
And I thought, wait a second, hold on. Ha ha, I win, you get the client. And I immediately went, oh man, I designed this wrong. There's a quote from a book that Bronco Mendenhall and a business guy was talking about, and basically says, organizations are designed to get the results they get. And so I immediately thought, I designed this wrong. Essentially, they were getting paid a salary. The bonus or commission structure that they got was so small it wasn't worth it to them. And so in their mind, if they take on a client, they are now busier and they're not making any more money. And so I just thought, I did this wrong. And so then I went back to my office and I thought, oh man, how do you make that change? Like your entire compensation structure of the leadership, the main people in your team, I designed it wrong. And so I thought, okay, well, what would it look like? So then for a while, I just kind of started thinking, if I could design the perfect scenario, what would it look like? So then I brought up what I thought was the perfect scenario with the people on the team. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to sign up for that.
Why? What was the perfect scenario and why weren't they going to sign up for it?
The perfect scenario was you make more money if you take good care of our clients. If you
Makes
lose
sense.
our clients, then you're going to lose some money. But it's more performance based. You take care of them, and I'll reward you if you do that. But the guys on the team, they wanted safety, security, salary.
So you had at that point a socialized entrepreneurial venture, which you were trying to turn into a capitalistic entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of saying it. That's a good way to say it. But again, in my mind, I was thinking I'm a slow growth kind of person, not a ride the lightning, go crazy and see what we can make happen. And so safety and security is important to me, which is a unusual entrepreneur trait, I think. But I also wanted that for my team. And so my team wanted salaries. They wanted safety. They wanted to know safe job, good place to work, all that kind of stuff, and how much I'm going to make. And so what ended up happening was I went through it, and I went back to the team later, and I just said, it's a new design. Here's what the design looks like. And a couple of them looked at it, and they said, yeah, I'm not interested in that. And I said, well, here's a date in the future. We're switching it to this date in the future. And frankly, I had almost a complete turnover of my team in that process. And that was, again, 7 years into the process. But the outcome is the design's better. But again, that was oh man, I screwed this one up. I did it wrong. I designed it wrong. I created it wrong. And that's one cool thing about an entrepreneur is that you have the ability and the opportunity to design it however you want it. But again, I just learned the lesson that what we think we've done and designed is right, and I was clearly wrong in that case.
Will you say that quote once more?
That every entrepreneur feels like they want to design the right thing.
No,
they feel like that's right.
The results.
Organizations are designed.
Oh, that
from
quote?
Bronco. Yeah.
Yeah. So organizations are designed to get the results that they get.
So there's no like luck or good luck or bad luck or like whatever's happening. That's such a good way to see it, and such an accountable way to see.
Yeah, because as soon as I realized what happened, and again, it was not like, oh, you guys, come on, man. the initial reaction, I think, from some people would be, I need to get better people on my team, or I need more committed people, or I need whatever, and you're blaming it on them. But again, that quote came to my mind, and it's like, oh, it's me. It was my design, not their issue. So I have to rebuild that.
I love that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, so I never got in the fetal position in the shower working through that one, but man, that was a heavy realization of my mistake and being accountable to my mistake.
I love that, Bruce. For an entrepreneur that's listening and watching this podcast, let's say that they're 2, 3, 5, 10 years into their business, and they realize that they've made a mistake and they designed the whole thing wrong, just like you felt. There's such an ego and pride associated with that, and actually going back to the drawing board and changing things, right? What do you tell that person?
Man, good question, Carlos. If you want to make strides or steps in the right direction, I think you just have to really look at it unemotionally and just say, will this help this entity be stronger? And again, in that case, what I realized is that, sorry, I'm going to take a little side story. So one of the guys was in the room while we still had that same model. He ended up losing a couple clients. And so I called him into the office and I said, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Thinking he's going to say something like, yeah, I should have done this better, that kind of stuff, meaning taking ownership and accountability for losing those clients. His response was, man, life's good. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, I just feel like I'm on top of all my clients. I have enough time. I have spare time. And I'm like, yeah, because you just lost some clients and you're getting paid the same amount. But again, there was no accountability and ownership on his part. And so again, will the change make the entity better? And then also, will it help your clients have a better experience? will it be better, meaning across the board? Meaning when he lost a client, that client had to make the decision, I don't like these guys. I don't want to work with them anymore. I'm not getting the results I want. I'm not getting the communication or whatever. They clearly had a bad experience, but there is no incentive for him not to provide a good experience because he was going to get paid the same either way.
Will you take me back? So we're going to go all the way back, 2004, 2005. You have this idea. Go and start this company. You have Kim, and I think you have some kids at that point as well. So it's not this risk-free, only your neck on the line if this doesn't succeed. Tell us about where you're at in life. What was the decision-making process? How did you hope it would work out, and what actually happened?
There was an incident that took place beforehand. So we're working for a company. I was an SEO pay-per-click guy for a specific company. I'm not going to name the owner of the company, but I was working there and been there for a year. Things had gone really, really well. We felt stable and solid, and finances were good and things. So we decided to build our house in Heber City. So we were living up in Midway at the time, and we decided to build our house. And about a week before we moved into the house, I got an email from my boss, and he said he was on a month-long vacation. And he said, Bruce, thank you for doing some good work for us. Unfortunately, I don't feel like you can do much more for our business. I think you've kind of capped out what we can do. So I'd like you to go find another job. I'll see you when I get back. So I get this email. My first reaction is, do I tell Kim? And I'm like, because if I go say, Kim, I just got fired and we're closing on our house in 5 days. I'm like, yes, of course I tell Kim. I'm like, okay, now how do I tell Kim? Because it's not going to be a very fun, pleasant conversation. So we move into the house. We decided to go forward with that. So the whole time, our family is helping us move couches and move furniture and everything. And they're like, this is so exciting. We're so happy for you, all these kind of things. And we're this fake smile. Yeah, this is awesome. This is so cool. We love this. Because we have no idea if we're going to have a job. So what ended up happening was we move in, boss comes back into town. I said, can we talk about the email? And he said, what email? And I said, the email where you fired me. And he said, I didn't fire you. And I said, let me forward the email to you. So I forwarded the email to him. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. That was just one of my emotional moments. It's not real. You have a job.
Can I apologize to the world for entrepreneurs
on behalf of the entire.
Yeah. So anyways, so he said, no, keep working here. And so then at that point, I'm thinking, yeah, until when? Like until you do this again? Yeah. And so I went to him and I just said, all right, I got a decision to make. I could stay here. Thank you for letting me stay here for now. Or I could go find another job. Or I think I could help other people with digital marketing, meaning I could start my own thing. And he said, oh, Bruce, you don't have the mindset of an entrepreneur. You would fail miserably. It wouldn't work. And he said, you can if you want, but it'd probably be better just for you to go get another job. And I said, well, let me just see what would happen. And so went down kind of a path of what would it look like if I started picking up clients on the side. And fast forwarding the story, about 3.5 months later, I was making more on the side than I was from the full-time job. So then I left the full-time job. And so that was early 2004.
SIBO was born.
Yeah.
There's one thing you said that I think is so important that entrepreneurs go through that's not talked about. So you had that experience where you got this email, and the first thought was, do I tell Kim? And I've had so many instances like that, and I've responded in both directions. There's been times where I didn't tell Courtney, and there's been times where I did tell Courtney. And I think we tell ourselves these stories. This is how they're going to respond. This is how it's going to make them feel. But we are judging and robbing them of the experience to respond positively. Yeah. And it's been an overwhelming response of positive relationship growth that we're able to go through it together that I think a lot of entrepreneurs are missing out on when they just say, I don't talk to my spouse about that kind of stuff.
But the balance, that's interesting too. Like there was There's a fellow entrepreneur. We were skiing one time, and on the chairlift, he basically just said, "Bruce, I just feel very alone." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "If business isn't good, I can't really go back to my team and says, 'Hey guys, business stinks,' because then everybody's afraid of their job and afraid what's going to happen, and so it's hard to bring that up with the team. And some people are more transparent about that than others, and how open with everything are you going to be versus not, whatever." And then he said, "It's also really hard for me to go home and tell my wife, 'Hey, honey, I'm really, really scared at work right now,' because then that stresses her out, that stresses kids out. And if you say, 'Stop spending any money until this works better,' that's hard." And he said, so that there's so many variations of feeling alone, and what does that look like? And so I think it's really hard to say blanket statement, every single situation will be fully transparent with my spouse and every person on the team. So fully transparent to fully not. It's a really hard balance to figure that out.
Sort of makes entrepreneur organization and the other entrepreneur groups so valuable.
Yeah.
On that note, it has been my experience that being fully transparent with Courtney has always brought the outcome, and that talks a lot to Courtney, who she is, right?
Yeah.
And that she can handle those things and not see bullets flying and jump out of the foxhole and run around with a chicken with its head cut off.
Yeah, a couple years ago along those lines, I just said, "Kim, I want to make sure that you feel like you know what's going on anytime you want. Like, you can ask me anything anytime you want." But then I said, "We're going to do an annual planning meeting. We're going to review last year. We're going to do our plans for this year." And we go down to St. George, rent out a house for a couple of days, and then we have a decent amount of people on our team that go down and be a part of that, and we have some fun along the way. They said, "Do you want to come?" And she said, "Will it be fun or interesting or whatever?" And riding in a big 15-passenger van down with the team to St. George, is that going to be cool or not or whatever? And so fast forward, she's basically come to almost all of the quarterly and semi-annual and annual planning meetings, just to make sure that she's up to speed on what's going on at SIBO.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I've enjoyed having her be able to do that.
How has that in a practical way? How has that helped the business and you?
I think that, number one, I think the team sees Kim more involved than she is. Like, she doesn't have a role at SIBO, but she and I are partners in the business. I mean, she technically owns the business along with me. And so I want to make sure that they know that she has an important role. But then the biggest one by far is afterwards she'll say, "Tell me more about this," or "Tell me more about that," or "Let's just kind of talk through that." And so she's allowing me to use her as a sounding board and bouncing ideas, because I know she's up to speed with what we're trying to accomplish.
I've talked to so many entrepreneurs that have said their most important partner is their spouse, and just have killer businesses and killer relationships. Yeah. I think we have to feel like we have to sacrifice one of those.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
We can have them complement each other.
And there's definitely the opposite, where they're like, "No, this is my thing." I have a really good friend that with his business, he's an entrepreneur, and he basically just says, my wife just says, "Just make sure we don't lose the house and we can have money for retirement. Other than that, figure it out." Kind of that idea. I mean, that spectrum of...
And that can work. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But you should observe that and see what's right for you and your
what
family.
fits for you. Yeah.
I'm also thinking here, a lot of time, maybe like once every other week, I go to my wife and I ask her, like, "Hey, what do you think on this? Like, I'm trying to do this with my team." And she gives her opinion, and sometimes I feel like, but you don't understand, like, the rest of the business. That wouldn't work. But if I kept her in the loop, she would know the business, and her opinion would be even more relevant. That's actually genius. Yeah. I did have a did you have a question?
Go ahead.
I had a question about, so you started SIBO 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Almost. Yeah.
Almost 20 years ago. And the space has changed a lot for digital marketing, right? And marketing in general.
Yeah, there's been a few changes here and there along the way.
I would love to hear about how you captured clients early on, and now, and I'm gonna make an assumption. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You
Okay.
probably didn't have a lot of competitors 20 years ago, or for sure not as many as you have now, when it comes to digital marketing. What has changed for you when you're going after clients over the years?
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to that question. Going after clients is an interesting way of phrasing it. And I'm just thinking out loud here. But a part of me just says attracting the right clients. There's a different meaning between going after clients and attracting the right clients. And I don't know if you can see the nuances there, but going after clients, in my opinion, says get a hungry salesperson, get them knocking on doors and making phone calls and doing whatever you can and just try to drum up as much business as possible. That is an approach. That is not the approach that we have used. And early on, it's a little different. But the idea of attracting the right clients is more important, in my opinion. And so what's an example of how that's different? In most businesses, there is a lead gen effort. So partnerships, websites, social, all the different things that you can do to try to generate leads. Those leads typically then go to a salesperson or sales team. The sales team then says, I think you should buy this or this or this or this. They sign them up for a service. Then they say, okay, sales team, to the account management team, here's going to be your account manager. Now fulfill that. Early on in the process, I saw people that I looked at what the proposal was or what the salesperson was selling, and it made absolutely no sense to me. So again, if you're going after somebody, you're trying to pursue businesses and get them to sign up and then make an offering of what the person should sign up for. I don't think that's, in my mindset, that is not the right approach. Again, if I had more of that mindset, we'd be bigger than we are. That doesn't mean it would be better, but we'd be bigger than we are if we went with that mindset. So we do not have a mindset. We do not have a salesperson that sells and passes it over to an account manager. And I don't know other digital marketing agencies that do it the same way that we do it, but it's a different approach.
So you've described this process of attracting customers rather than going after customers. How has your attracting approach changed? Have you baited it historically with honey and now you're baiting it with something else?
It's really just understanding who your ideal client is and who you're wanting more of those. And the more you understand that, the more, it's hard to explain, but more opportunities just come your way. Like the more people that are aware of what's ideal for you, it just seems like there's more opportunities to try to find them.
Who's the ideal customer for anyone listening to this if they wanted to use SIBO? Who's the ideal?
Our normal answer to that is the math has to look good. That's not the answer most people are expecting. And what we mean by that is if we can get you 100 visitors to the website, and I'm just making up numbers right now, and we get 5 leads, and out of those 5 leads, 2 of them turn into customers, and let's just make up that each of those customers is worth $500. You had 100 visitors that eventually turned into 2 customers, and that those customers were worth $500 each. So that means you got $1,000 of value from those 100 visitors. That means that every visitor is worth 10 bucks. So if you can figure out that math, then you can say, could I get a visitor to the website for less than $10? Then it works all day long. There's some situations. So most extreme situation I came across, a DUI attorney down in Mesa, Arizona reached out to us because he had a friend that was an attorney and a client of ours. And he said, I need to talk to you guys. So we looked into pay-per-click, and it was a 1 Google ad click at that time, geo-targeted to the Mesa area, was $274.
The cost or the revenue? The cost to the company?
The cost per click.
Wow.
was $274. Okay, so now you get 100 visitors for $27,400. If you get 5 leads and 2 of them turn into customers, and let's just say a client for the attorney is $5,000, then they spent $27,400 to get $10,000 back out. That math does not work, and we don't want that as a client. So what we do is we figure out categories and industries where it works out really nicely. For example, we have a physical therapy office. The owner of the physical therapy office, his dad started the business, and Matt's a really good friend of mine. And he said, Bruce, Dad says that the way that we get business to our physical therapy office is to get doctor referrals. And I said, I'm sure that's a way to get visitors to your practice. And I said, but I'm sure you could make this work with Google. And he said, how? And I said, well, we could talk about this strategy or that strategy. So we talked about a pay-per-click strategy. And we basically said, okay, what are some keywords we could go after? What are the costs for those keywords? Does the math play out? And so fast forward, he now has 35 to 40% of his clients come from Google. And so we want to make sure that the math plays out. And so that's what we're looking for. So there are certain categories. Mortgage is really, really hard. Real estate's hard. Most insurance is really hard. Most financial services are really hard. There's a bunch of different categories. But so we just kind of brainstorm with somebody to see if it would work. And so that's kind of the take we have on it. So it's a little different answer than you're probably expecting, but because most people would say, we want this. Like, I'd take different physical therapy offices all across the country if we could, because we know which keywords and ads, and we know the math plays out and all that kind of stuff. And again, if a client is worth a decent amount to a person, to a company, then that clearly helps. But they also have to have a decent website, and by a decent website, reasonably fast, reasonably easy to use on mobile devices. And then most people don't ever think about what keywords they want. Meaning, let's do this with you right now, Court. So, which business?
Okay,
want to do it with Carlos? Okay. So Carlos, what phrase would somebody type into Google that you would want your site to show up first for?
Inspections in Texas.
Inspections in Texas.
Inspection company in Texas.
Okay, inspection company Texas, or inspection company.
Or inspection services in Texas.
Okay, so Carlos, you just gave me 3 or 4 variations, right?
Yes.
So if we went to Google and we do a special search, it's a site : search. It's SITE : then the URL of your website. What will happen is Google is going to pull up all the pages that exist on your website. So how many pages do you think exist on your website?
About 30.
Okay.
30.
Okay, so there's 30 pages on the website. So then what you do is you see the 30 pages, hopefully in Google's index, and then we use quotation marks and we say inspections in Texas. And then we see, is that phrase even on your website? 9 out of 10 times, and I've done this thousands of times.
I can tell it's not.
It's not going to be on the website.
Yeah.
And so if you want to show up for that phrase, put it on your website and put it on the website in the right places.
Oh, man.
So most people have never even thought through the keyword strategy and what keywords to go after. And so again, when I say keyword strategy, there's some keywords that are too hard. Like earlier I said mortgage. Don't go after the phrase mortgage, because there's too many other sites that have millions of pages that have been around for many years that have thousands or millions of links pointing back to them. So don't go after that phrase. So we're looking for a phrase that you can put on your website that if somebody types that in, they come to that page and they're likely to contact you because you're providing them value from that page. That's what we're looking for.
Oh, I love that.
And so some people, they've never thought through that. They're not responsive to that. Sometimes somebody says, can you help us? And we say, do you know how to access your website? And they'll say, I don't even know what my website is. We're not likely to be able to help them. But if we can find out what their website is and then say, okay, is it a WordPress website? Is it a Shopify website? Is it a Squarespace? How is the website built? What in the world are you guys even talking about, Bruce? That's probably not going to work very well. If we can say, here's our website, here's how to get into our website, so we can make those changes. We also have Google Analytics 4 set up. We have Google Tag Manager set up. We have Search Console set up. If we have all those things in place, then we can actually go look at the math and see if the math is going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
So that audit of a site beforehand will help us understand, is this potentially a good fit? Like if you invest in SEO and or pay-per-click, is it likely that it's going to work out? And if we're not confident it's likely going to work out, then we'll just say, here's what you should do. Good luck. Because we don't want to take their money if we don't think it's going to work.
I think there's something different about the question that you asked. I have worked with about 2 marketing agencies, and I've had one head of marketing, and we moved away from that person, and now we are. I have a new head of marketing in place. No one asked me that question. Those agencies that we worked with, they asked, "What are your keywords?" And my answer would be mortgage, finance, equipment finance. No one ever asked me, "What is your customer typing on Google?"
Yeah, there's a variation in that. So a company recently, they were talking to us to try to hire us essentially, and we said, what phrase? So this is an HVAC company, air conditioning furnace type of company, and they said, we want to go after the phrase furnace changeouts. And I looked at him and I just said, nobody would use the word change out. And he goes, no, everybody in the industry uses the word furnace change out. I'm like, yeah, but if my mom was going to be replacing her furnace, she's never going to use the phrase furnace change out. So we went and looked, and there were 0 searches in the last 90 days for the phrase furnace change out. So we said, well, what about furnace replacement or furnace repair or furnace? So there's a lot of times where people, when they think about their own business, they're not using common terms. They're using industry terms.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're optimizing your site for industry terms, you're not going to have any success.
And that's what we've always done.
Yeah. You are not alone.
Thanks, Bruce.
That is very, 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 very common to have people do that kind of the wrong way.
So as somebody starting a company, I think there's this idea of founder-led growth and this brute force selling approach that is the first example of a hungry salesperson going and attacking customers to get more sales.
Yeah.
At what point do you stop thinking in, I'm going to go get a kill, and start thinking in, I'm going to pull the clients towards me through some incentive or through some messaging? And is that point at conception, like you have to start thinking it? We didn't have any marketing for the first 3 years of Aspen. Can you do that in 2024? Or like, do you have to go and start with marketing as we're going to pull customers this way and we're going to do founder-led sales?
That's a loaded question. So a couple thoughts. One thought is mindset of the entrepreneur is a really, really big difference in how you're going to approach that. So again, if you're basically saying, I started this business because I want it to be a X size business by this period of time. And if that's the goal and that's what they're going to try to do, then that brute force is going to probably be the way that they need to go about it. If you're going to say, all right, we're here right now, I want to get to this next step. And if it takes 3 months or 6 months or whatever, I'm okay with that. So the mindset of the entrepreneur is a massively big difference in that. So that's the first thing. Second thing, again, I think a lot of times too many entrepreneurs are so focused on the sale, they're not focused on the retention. So in digital marketing, there's a pretty high turnover or churn rate of clients in most agencies because they're bringing somebody on, they're trying to get the sale, they're trying to move forward, but then it's not the right keyword, it's not the right phrase, it's not the right whatever. And so they don't see the results. And so they say, yeah, this isn't working. And then they stop. But then unfortunately, what ends up happening is a lot of people will say, yeah, marketing agencies don't know what they're doing. Or I tried it once, it didn't work, therefore I'm not going to try it again. And then they feel stuck. There's right ways and wrong ways of doing that. There's so many parts to that conversation, like I said.
How can you run some experiments for not a lot of money to find out if it is going to work?
Great question. there's a bunch of ways of doing that. If anybody wants to read a book, there's a book called The Lean Startup. And in there, he was trying to get his business bigger. And essentially what he did is he said, yep, that book right there. And Eric was talking about that. And he said, what we want to do is we want to send 100 visitors a day to a page. So they were building in the book, he talks about a software tool that they're making. And in software, there's a term called feature creep. Feature creep just simply says, we're going to add this feature to it, and we're going to add this feature to it, and add this feature to it. And then pretty soon, your minimum viable product looked like this, and now it's this, even though you were really just trying to create something else. So in there, what Eric did was he basically said, we're going to send 100 visitors a day to our website. We are going to say that our software includes this feature. And if we get more leads because we've added that feature, then we know that that is a worthwhile feature. And then we are lean enough that we could add that feature right away. But if we add another feature and that doesn't increase the conversion rates, then we're not going to bother adding that feature. So the point is simply, it's not very hard to set up tests to say we're going to send 100 visitors and we're going to see if we're going after the right keyword or the right. So back to the physical therapy situation. I said, what keywords do we want to go after? We had a lengthy conversation. We basically had 8 different categories. So for example, shoulder surgery rehab, dry needling, running gait analysis. I mean, all these different potential kind of phrases. So we said, okay, what's a budget we can start with? This much. Okay, that's only going to allow us to go after 3 of the phrases. So we basically set up a Google Ads test where we said this phrase is going to show this ad. It's going to send them to this landing page. This other phrase is going to show this different ad and go to this different landing page. And what we did is we sent 100 visitors here, 100 visitors here, 100 visitors here. When we did that, one of them worked really well. One of them essentially broke even. One of them did not work. And so we said, okay, pause this one. Let's now see if we can increase the budget on the one that was working. Meaning if the budget was only allowing your ads to show up 30% of the time, that's known as search impression share. So the ads are only showing up 30% of the time. So we basically said, okay, you can triple your budget. In theory, that's going to triple your leads because it's the same keyword, same ad text, same landing page. So we just started, we said, okay, take budget away from the one that didn't work. We add budget to the one that's working. And then the leads went up. And then we said, okay, now we're generating some profits from that. Now let's try experiment number 4. Let's try this keyword and landing page. And so we just kind of kept working through that. And so we had 8 target keyword phrases. We never got to the last 3 or 4 of them because frankly, his practice is really busy now. And so he doesn't want to increase his pay-per-click spend because they can't really handle the leads. Well, why doesn't he grow? He already did. He had an Orem office. It had a certain number of beds. He built a new office in Orem in a much bigger facility. He doubled the beds. Those beds are now full. He had another office in Provo, and that one got all the beds filled up. And he said, I need to find a new place. So he's working with a real estate agent. He's having a tough time finding a better place. The business that was right across the hallway, they moved out. And so he moved in there. So now he added more beds there. And so, but again, we've never even tested some of those because he's already generating enough leads to keep his 2 locations full, essentially. So that's the easiest way, in my opinion, is you pick out a keyword target, think about what the ad would say, think about what the landing page would say. So on the original page that they had for shoulder surgery, they basically just said, we're really good at this, and we've done this for a long time, and you should use us. Like, you didn't answer any of the questions. Mm-hmm. Do you take my insurance? How long does it take? How many appointments a week? Does it hurt? Is it painful? Just all those questions that the person has, that wasn't on the landing page. So we made a new page to answer all of the questions. And so again, doing experiments like that is super powerful. Keywords, ads, landing pages, and just see. That's the easy answer to the question. Man. Yeah,
I love it.
I love that because it's exactly what we said, Court. I feel like marketing sometimes is treated like an art, and you just made it sound like a science.
Yeah, I mean the design part and the color part and all that. I mean, there's absolutely an art to it. There's also an art to, should I go after these words or these words?
Right.
There's a lot of that, but then once you kind of nail it down, just a formula of this keyword, this ad, that landing page.
So why would a company use, you're an outsourced partner for marketing, SEO. Why would they use you instead of hiring their own in-house person?
Great question. And frankly, a lot of the times when we lose a client, it's actually because they've grown to a point where they can actually have it in-house.
Got it.
And so when that happens, we're sad to see a client go, but I have lots of stories where they just said, at this point, the amount that we're paying, we could hire somebody internally. So again, that's definitely an option. The drawback to that is, I mentioned this to you earlier, but the Google SEO algorithm changed 5,000 times in 2021. So if you think about that application of it, so way back in the story, before I started my own agency and I was an SEO and pay-per-click person, what ended up happening was I would make a change to the website and I'd go, oh, look, my rankings went up. I would therefore make a connection in my head that said this change was good and caused my rankings to go up. It's possible that that change was good and it caused my rankings to go up. It's also possible that one of my competitors did something dumb. So they lost their ranking. So they moved down, which by default meant that I moved up. So a lot of people, when they're doing it on their own, they make associations of what actually worked and what impact it made, and they're wrong. So there's a lot of situations where somebody said, yeah, I did this and this and this, and our rankings went up. And I looked at it, I'm like, that's not what happened. But they make the wrong associations. So again, using us when we have hundreds of clients across the board, we can see when the big changes, like we don't know all 5,000 changes. I mean, the only people that know all 5,000 changes are the developers of the Google crawler. So, but we can see trends and we can see how things work. And so when we can apply principles across a bunch of clients' websites, that's stronger knowledge than if you're just doing little changes individually. So that's one thing. Number two is we talk to Google on a weekly basis and we get insights and ideas and thoughts and things. There's a few times in the past where we've even gotten calls from Google that they've said, by the way, this big change is coming up. Tell your clients in advance. So there's stuff like that happens. Those are more rare, but those, like when there's a mobile friendly test and a big mobile change, we got calls from Google just to say, this is how it's going to work. This is what's going to happen. And so work with your clients in advance. So those are a couple of reasons why somebody might work with us instead of doing it on their own.
So the person inside the company, your client, they're going to see their customer on a regular basis, be talking to them, hopefully on a regular basis. They're going to know about their website. But they're not seeing the algorithms that are changing. They're not seeing the keywords that are changing. And you're able to see this aggregate of all of it and then also combine that with your client's knowledge. And because it just seems like an alignment. Like you align this, like these 8 variables, and there'll be money in your bank account. And you have one of those off or 2 of those off or 3 of them off just a little bit or one off significantly. Yeah. And it just stops the whole funnel. Yep. And you guys get to see that because this is all you do. Yeah, that is an accurate way of saying it.
Cool. Bruce, I have a question, and I want to get into a little bit more detail of something that you said. Just a backstory. So at Aspen, we did for months, almost a year, we just invested in paid traffic.
Google ads or social?
Google ads, LinkedIn ads, all of those. And then for about a year, we would get max 2 leads a month from those, and we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. Then
so the math didn't play out.
Didn't play out. And so, as I said, I went through a couple of agencies, went through a head of marketing, and then in January I made a change, and I decided to promote this person internally to that position. And then she looked, and all credit to her, she looked at it and said, let's stop spending money. These customers are going to our page, to our LinkedIn. There's no story there. We're not telling anything. So we are spending, for the last 4 months, we've spent $0 on paid traffic, on ads.
Okay.
And we're just every week producing pure content. And we went from getting 2 leads a month to now last month we got 11.
Awesome.
And a lot of money came out of those leads. But there was something that you said, it's not just producing content, it's not just posting. It's not enough to just say, here's who we are and this is what we do, right?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the structure of a good content or of a good landing page?
So a couple things come to mind. First thing is we're talking about content to draw people to your website. Is that correct?
Yes.
No,
yes.
or content once they're already on the website to convert them.
Both.
And there's a big difference because when
Okay.
people think of content, they just think we need to write content. Cool. Why? Like, what's the point? So again, if you're writing content specifically to drive traffic to your website, that's awesome, but it's a strategy. If you say, I'm writing content so that the people that are already coming can convert better, that's a strategy.
Okay.
And so again, we need more content. Yeah, but why? Like, what's the application? What are you trying to do with it? The science behind that. Again, you can write a great piece of content. It shows up, then and the SEO results, therefore you draw more traffic, but you're getting more traffic and no conversions. That doesn't really help you a whole lot.
Right,
Okay, so then how do you tweak the content, change the content so that it's more conversion focused or friendly without losing the SEO stuff? Or you can write the content from a landing page from a pay-per-click perspective, or you can write the content for little snippets in social that sort of drives to your site, or maybe you're driving the leads through your social media. So again, the generic, I want content, it's way more than that. It's a deeper strategy than that. And most people haven't thought through how it all works together. They just think, I need to write 1 post a week.
Yeah.
Cool. Why? Like what metric are you trying to change? And so that's why I was asking when you're talking about the content, so for example, you said you went from 2 leads a month to 11 leads a month.
Yes.
I want to know specifically, so you had basically a 500% increase in your leads.
Yes.
Did your traffic go up by 500%? Or did your conversion rate go up? Like what actually was, why did you get those? Was it because you got more people seeing it? Like how many visits did you have to your content? Or was it a conversion rate perspective? And again, most people don't measure any of that stuff.
That's a great question.
And so again, if I know that you wrote more pieces that increased your traffic by 500% and your conversion rate stayed the same, then write more content
Yes.
and get more traffic coming.
And that's exactly what happened. That the content that we've been creating is to drive traffic. So we're on LinkedIn and we're posting, and that's creating, we're getting in front of people.
So I'm going to push. Can you prove to me through the metrics that it increased your traffic by 500%?
No.
Okay, so then you're guessing.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to be a pain.
No, I love it.
But,
yes.
but that's the point. Again, is most people don't think through this strategy should have this effect. Now we measure that effect and did it work? And so again, it's very possible that you drove no extra traffic.
Right.
But you had better words in there that were converting related words or the right message to your target audience kinds of words. And then as a result, your conversion rate went up, not traffic. And so I teach people this. So we do a free website boot camp twice a month, every other month at SIBO down in Provo. But in there, I will tell people right at the very start, every strategy that we're dealing with when we're dealing with our business and our website either comes down to a traffic strategy or a conversion rate optimization strategy. So for example, if I said, Carlos, change a sentence on your website, and we changed the sentence, you might have changed the sentence because you put a keyword phrase in there that you're expecting to get more traffic because you changed that sentence to be a keyword specific phrase.
Mm-hmm.
You might have changed the sentence to make the call to action or the benefit statement or whatever more clear. So you're doing that from a conversion rate perspective. Anytime you touch your website, I'm going to do this to my website today. I'm going to add more content. I'm going to do this. Whatever it is, you always, always, always should say, I'm doing this to impact traffic, or I'm doing this to impact conversion rate optimization. And if you're not doing that, you're tweaking your website. You're just making edits to your website, but you're not actually measuring anything. And so if you know, again, that example that you shared, the 2 to 11, almost nobody really knows, was it a traffic change or was it a conversion rate change? And that's what I want people to understand more, is when I'm doing those edits or those strategies or whatever, what am I really trying to affect? Another phrase I use a lot is, if you have unlimited time, energy, resources, do everything. Write more content, do traffic stuff, and do everything. But you don't. So since you don't, you have to prioritize what is the most important thing I can do right now. I'm going to change this sentence. I'm going to add more content. I'm going to do whatever. Why? To get more traffic. So we're currently getting this much traffic to our website. Now we made this change. Oh, look, our traffic doubled. Okay, great. Then do more. So that's the whole idea. So I love that you went from 2 to 11.
That's amazing.
But I want you to know why you went to 2 to 11.
Yes. And I'm just thinking through what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna go to the metrics and I'm gonna see how many people, and I'm gonna look at both.
Okay, so when you say go to the metrics, what tools come to your mind?
So we use one called Warmly. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Okay.
It just lets us know who is visiting the website, where they're clicking, and how many people are visiting the website. That's what we use.
Okay.
We've used Google Analytics in the past. I don't know how to use it, but that's the one I know how to use and we use today. It's called Warmly.
Okay. Yeah, we suggest that every website has a good tracking tool.
Yeah.
Google Analytics is free. It's now called Google Analytics 4 or GA4. We definitely would suggest that even if you have another tool, that you still just get Google Analytics 4 installed, just so you can kind of have a second set of data just to try to track that. The other thing that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to data tracking is, if the whole point is to get 100 visitors to your website so you can get 5 leads or 10 e-commerce sales or whatever it happens to be, we want to know how many people are coming, how they got there. Was it from social or direct, or was it pay-per-click, or was it SEO, or like, what are the traffic acquisition channels? How do they get there? Once they get there, what do they do afterwards? And so every ending point, the person comes to the website and they call you. The person comes to the website and they fill out a form. The person comes to the website and they buy something. The person comes to the website and they sign up for a webinar. The person, whatever those endpoints are, those big main purposes of the website, those are known as goals or conversions. And so most people don't tag the goals or conversions correctly, so you don't really know exactly how many of those are taking place. If you have analytics and your goals and conversions tracking correctly, then when you say I went from 2 to 11, then you already have the data right there. Like, you don't even have to worry about it anymore because the data is there. So then you can find out, was it because of an increase in traffic or an increase in conversion rates? And so in my opinion, every business should have a business website. We don't build websites, but we want to have a website in place. We want to have data tracking in place, so we know how did people get there and what did they do next, and then have your conversion tracking in place so that you know exactly what's happening. Then earlier I mentioned 2 other tools. One's called Google Tag Manager, another one's called Search Console. Just real quick on those 2. If somebody comes to your website and they click a YouTube video, or they come to your website and they click on a social media link and they jump over to your social media, what happens is Google can't track that. The reason why is because your analytics code doesn't reside at facebook.com, or your analytics code doesn't reside at YouTube. So if somebody comes to your site and they click on a YouTube video and they start watching that, analytics can't track it. So there's another tool called Google Tag Manager. It's also free. It allows us to track things that Google Analytics can't. Another super common one is if you're booking something through a third-party tool, like for business lead gen purposes, Calendly is often utilized. If we have a client that they do some big family reunion lodges. They didn't want to build their own booking tool, so they send it to a third-party tool called Logix. So when the person says book now and they go over to Logix, analytics goes, that's too bad. The person left. So Tag Manager is critical in tracking the key actions that you want to take place on the site. The other tool, Search Console. Most people don't realize that Google, as a crawler, comes and visits your website. It will try to follow every link. It will try to go through everything on the website, and it will essentially say, by the way, you have 14 broken links over here, and you have all this other stuff. So it will give you a report on how it's doing. If the site does well on mobile, there's a whole bunch of data about the site speed and usability and all these things, then it will also tell you all of the keywords that Google is showing you for in Google search results, how many impressions, how many clicks, and what your current ranking is for that. So if you want to show up for this particular phrase, then you go to Search Console and say, there's nobody searching for it. I don't care if I show up for that phrase. Or I'm showing up and I'm in position 70, so you're 8 pages down in the search results. Don't go after that phrase, because if you spend an hour trying to optimize for that phrase, you might go from position 70 to position 40. That's not going to make any impact on your traffic. So you have to be really strategic on what keywords you go after. So high searches, relevant, and it's gettable. And if you don't have that in place, you're going after the wrong words. So then I tried SEO, it didn't work. Yeah, you're doing it wrong. And so Search Console is critical for that.
Wow. What a masterclass.
I know. I love this. The idea that's coming to mind is the marketing teacher, the sales teacher that says, where's the best place to have a hot dog stand? And you heard this?
No,
I don't think so.
Where do you think the best place to have a hot dog stand is?
Outside of a stadium.
Maybe. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm stumped on that one.
Wherever there's a starving crowd. And I think my whole approach has been, you got to be more persuasive. You just got to talk to more people. And that is one approach.
Make a nicer hot dog.
Yeah, that's a one approach to selling, right? You go and you knock a bunch of doors and you talk a bunch of business and put in a bunch of reps, and you'll find somebody that, oh yeah, you know what? A hot dog sounds good right now, so I'm going to have that today. But if you go to the starving crowd, and you can do that through all of these things that you're talking about, and you can assess how hungry are they, how much do they like hot dogs, then you can dial everything in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I freaking love that process. It's so much more scientific.
Yeah.
And it is the quintessential work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And combine both of those, work smart and hard.
And one of the reasons I end up getting into this, fortunately, is I'm very analytical side of the brain. And obviously you could hear that throughout the conversation today, but if you can look at the data and let the data tell you what to do next, it's science, and it's just testing and tweaking and improving. And that's how but most people, they don't look at their site enough, they don't look at their data enough, they don't really know what's going on. They're making massive assumptions. I increased from 2 to 11 leads because of X. Sorry, you're guessing unless we're looking at the data.
I'm going to make an assumption. That probably creates a huge advantage for your business, because through data analytics, you can prove results that makes me more confident to spend money on you, which that has not been my experience with other marketing companies.
Because we'll tell you, you might say, I want to go after this phrase, and we'll look at it and like, yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
We need to have a conversation about using you guys after this. I have one more question, unless you have anything.
No, I'm good.
So one thing I didn't mention is that Bruce teaches at BYU as an adjunct professor.
Yeah, correct.
You teach a marketing class?
Yeah, so I was involved in helping create the Intro to Digital Marketing class 7, 8, 9 years ago, like a while ago. And they have a textbook in there, and I helped the guy that created the textbook tweak some things around in the textbook. And then a couple years into it, the main professor, he wasn't able to teach, so he asked me to teach. And I said, no. Running a business, have other businesses, I mean, no thanks. But then I ended up teaching that class, and it was a lot of fun. So then they said, will you come back and create a more advanced class? And so about 6 years ago, I created an advanced digital marketing class. So just one class a semester. It's a super fun thing to do, and then it's also a great way to hire new people. So about half my team, actually has come from my class. So because I have a 4-month long interview, and so I know who I'm going to get by the time they join our team.
What a cool way to give back.
Yeah, it's fun.
My last question for you is, as these students are leaving your class, is there a specific, like, one thing that you would hope that they would take away and take with them into the workforce for the rest of their life?
Oh, man. Does it have to be digital marketing?
No, they're just at a pivotal time in their life, early 20s.
Okay.
Is there a piece of advice that you leave with
Yeah,
them?
yeah. And the reason why I asked, does it have to be digital marketing, is I spent 4 months of them talking to digital marketing.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, this topic came out, and now it's actually a last day every semester, in addition to preparing for the final exam. So, so part of the day is that. But the way that I explain this, so we just did this last Wednesday, and I said, all right, I need 5 to 7 people to be volunteers to come up to the board. So they go up to the board. I have them draw an x-axis line and a y-axis line. The x-axis line is their life. The y-axis line, and I say it can be happiness, it can be job satisfaction, it can be pay, it can be success, whatever you want to define the y-axis line. I want you to think about it. So most people, they'll start drawing things out. And have you done this in EO with kind of a little life chart kind of thing?
I've historically done it, but not future facing.
Okay, got it. So what ends up happening is usually people would draw a line, and then almost all of them have a dip during middle school. That's just a trend I've seen a whole bunch of times. And then what ends up happening is they kind of, then things get a little bit better. And then when they go into the future line is always higher than the present line in their mind. Meaning, wherever you are now, again, and they don't think about this, but this is kind of where the math, where the line shows, is that I'm less happy, successful, whatever word you want to use now, and I expect it to get better. Everybody that I've done this, other than one person, he basically said, but by the time I'm 50, I'm just going to go downhill. And so I'm just going to let everything slide. And so he draws this cliff dropping off. But everybody else has this line that basically just says, I will be happier later. So we had 7 people that did this last Wednesday, and all of their lines were higher at the end. And so when I say to them, so what observations do you have? And so I'm going to ask you two, if you could picture that line, what observations do you have? That right now you're at this level, but you expect more later. Is that what you would write? Is that what your line would look like?
I think my immediate answer to that would be, if you asked me to draw that, I would draw the line to going up.
So life is better than it's going to be right now.
Yes, that I would have done that. But now that you said, but when you asked that question that you just asked, I'm like, I don't know if you can get better than this, or I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Carlos, for that thought on that.
I mean, if you have dollars, I think that makes sense. It goes up and to the right. If you have level of success, I think that makes sense that you go up and to the right.
Okay.
If you have happiness, I think that line often goes down and to the right as life becomes more stressful.
So life is as good now as it can get, and then it's going to get worse?
I think that there's some evidence to show that as far as happiness goes, that people can be happier younger in life, and then life doesn't pan out to be how they'd like.
Okay, hold on. You guys are both probably 20 years younger than me or more. Are you happier than I am?
I don't know how you would define happiness. You're always smiling though, so I think you're pretty happy. But I think if you're saying money and success, I think it would go up and to the right. If it's happiness or fulfillment or joy, I think that can go up, plateau, or go down based on the person.
Okay. So again, we just have that conversation with the class. The point, and there's lots of lessons that can be pulled from that experiment or that exercise. But the point, there's a book, one of my favorite books is called Solve for Happy by a gentleman named Mo Godot. And he basically has a long story, but the summary of it is his mom said, work hard, make more money, delay gratification, and then eventually you'll be happy. So he basically just said, okay, so I'm going to work really hard in school. I'm going to go get a good job. I'm going to get good pay. I'm going to do all those things. But my happiness hadn't changed. So where was all the happiness I had the right to expect? And it's a mindset thing. And again, if you think that I'm saving for later so I can then go on a trip or retire or do whatever, I'm trying to go there so then I can be happy. That's, in my opinion, a major flaw in thinking. Mm-hmm. Because again, right now you have the ability to be happy if you want. If you want to suffer, something bad happened, and so I'm going to replay that in my head over and over and over again. He has a chart in the book that basically says the past, present, and future, and he maps all of the emotions that can take place in the past, present, and future. And basically, happiness is present. Everything else is not. Mm-hmm. And so again, there's way more to that than that. But that lesson, so again, in students, they're thinking, man, as soon as I graduate, as soon as I get that job, as soon as I get that promotion, they're setting themselves up to giving them permission to not be happy yet. I can be happy I can't be happy until I graduate, or I get the job, or I get the promotion, or I get married, or I have a child, or I have whatever. They're setting themselves up or telling them it's okay not to be happy now. It's gonna come later. And I think that's a massive, massive mistake in thinking. So that's what came to mind when you brought up that question.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been phenomenal to have you on, man. Thank you so much for taking the afternoon with us. It's been amazing.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos.
Thank
good questions,
you.
Good thoughts.
You've been watching Hello Grow, the world's #1 growth podcast. I'm Cortland Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza. If you've watched this video so far, it means that you like the content that we're putting out and the people we're interviewing.
We're putting together a community of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales leaders. You liking, subscribing, and sharing this content helps us reach those that are going on that journey.
If you want to be a part of this community, please subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications.